This is the time of year that we are experiencing a lot of ERP software vendor conferences. It's the time when vendors are rolling out new product roadmaps, showcasing successful customers. They're talking about all the great stuff they're doing with cloud and AI, agentic AI, analytics, acquisitions they've made in the marketplace. They bring in big keynote speakers, big name entertainers. There's a lot of hype in these conferences, but how much of it is reality? What's real? We're going to try and separate hype from fiction here in the conference season. And we're going to focus on two conferences in particular. One I'm at right now as we speak. I am at the Epicor Insights Conference here now. And we're also going to look at what some of the lessons are and takeaways are from the Epicor Insights Conference. We're also going to talk about some of the takeaways and lessons from SAP's Sapphire Conference, which is happening in Barcelona as well as Orlando. Back-to-back weeks, SAP has showcased a lot of new stuff and made a lot of big announcements, trying to make a big splash in the marketplace. So that's what we're going to cover here in episode 275 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you.
3, 2, 1.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 275. My name is Eric Kimberling, CEO of Third Stage Consulting, and we're an independent tech-agnostic consulting provider that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. A large part of what we do is we help clients define their digital strategies. We help them select software. We help them plan for implementation. We help them with program management, change management, even the technical aspects of implementation. And we also help with project recovery. And so we see it all. We go to all these conferences every year. We go to all the big name conferences, SAP Sapphire, Oracle's Cloud World, Oracle NetSuite, Suite World. We go to Infor's big conference every year. We sometimes will go to other industry analyst events. We host our own conference each year called Stratosphere 2026. That's one that we'll host in September in Denver, September 9th through 11th, by the way, shameless plug. September 9th through 11th. Registration's open for that. It's really the industry's only tech-agnostic, ERP-focused and digital transformation-focused conference. I'll be there as a keynote speaker. We'll have probably about 20 other speakers there as well. A lot of different vendors and exhibitors there. But setting that aside, let's talk about software vendor conferences. Two in particular right now, and this is going to be indicative of where the market is headed. A lot of what we'll talk about here, a lot of the themes we're going to cover. But we are going to hone in on Epicor and SAP. Those are the two conferences that have most recently caught my attention, partially because I was at those conferences. And so we've got a great show for you today. We're going to feature conversations with Carrie Jordan, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Epicor. She's also formerly the Chief Product Officer. So she comes from more of a, I don't want to say a technical side of things, but more of a product management side of things. Now she's moved over to marketing. We're going to talk to her. We're actually going to show you a clip that of an interview I did with her recently, where she talks with myself and the head of the Epicor users group in the US, talking about their recent decision to double down on the cloud and to move away from on-premise investments and innovations. May not sound like a big deal to many of you because a lot of vendors have already done that, but Epicor was one of the holdouts. They were one of the companies that was holding off on forcing customers to the cloud. They had always sort of prided themselves on giving customers an option. You know, if you want on-prem, you can have it. If you want cloud, you can have it. If you want a hybrid, you can have it. Well, now they're saying, as of early this year, they're saying, actually, you can't have it anymore, at least not for the infinite future. So they've made that decision. And so what's really interesting is we're going to have a good conversation with her and the head of the user group, where we talk to both the customer perspective and the vendor perspective, because I think that's where things get tricky, is because vendors have their focus and the things they need to do to run their business. Customers have their things they need to run as a business. So that gets real interesting. And then we'll talk about, we'll also bring on Krista and Scott are the two names of the people we'll bring on from Rimini Street. It's a third-party support provider. They were at Sapphire, SAP's Sapphire as well. They're going to help me unpack some of the lessons and themes and takeaways from SAP Sapphire this year. And even if you're not looking at SAP or Infor for your digital strategy roadmap, I think this is a conversation you don't want to miss, because we're getting into general vendor trends, We're going to talk about some big bucket sorts of stuff around how to manage vendors, how to manage and navigate the potential conflicts of interest you might have with software vendor and what they want to do versus what you want to do to run your business. And I think a big theme here that I'm noticing just as I look through my notes here is, I'm fresh off a string of conferences so far this spring. And one thing I've noticed here is that, some of the big themes are that I take away when I go to these conferences. I always try to back up and just think, okay, let's, saw some cool stuff, had some nice happy hours, saw some good entertainment, saw some great magical keynote speakers. For example, the conference I'm at right now, the Epicor conference, they had Nick Saban. Tonight, the day I'm filming this podcast, they're going to have Miranda Lambert. I'm not a huge Miranda Lambert fan, but big name artist, big name country singer. So they pull out all the stops at these conferences, and I'm just giving you a flavor for what you can expect at these conferences if you haven't been recently. The reason I bring all this up is because I like to back up and look at, okay, what did I take away from the conference? I made some great connections, had some great entertainment, heard some good messaging from the vendors, but how do I take this back to my client base? And if I'm a customer, what can I actually learn from this? What can I actually do with this? And one thing I always come back to, especially recently in these conferences, is these vendors. I'm talking about SAP and Epicor as well as other ERP vendors in the marketplace. They're not moving slow. I mean, there's no lack of effort. There's no lack of speed. There's no lack of velocity in what these vendors are doing. They are moving at a breakneck speed, investing heavily in AI, investing heavily in cloud, making acquisitions, introducing new tool sets and ways to try to make their customers successful. So they're all, I think, for the most part, vendors are trying to do the right thing. But here's the kicker. I think the challenge with what's going on in the enterprise tech space is that the tech space is moving so quickly that customers are getting left behind. And so I think of it as a chasm. Customers are always changing, right? They're out running you're out there running your business, you're making acquisitions, you're developing new product lines, developing new service offerings, making tweaks to your business model, you're hiring new people, all kinds of stuff is happening. So you are changing and you probably feel like you're moving very quickly. The world around you is moving very quickly, but software vendors take it to a whole nother level. Their only job is to innovate. That's all they have to do is to create one product that's very innovative. And to consume what these vendors are creating is just a massive undertaking. And I'll give you some examples here of what I mean by that. You look at SAP, for example. They're introducing something called the autonomous enterprise, where they have this vision. And Christian Klein, who's the CEO of SAP, laid this out both in Orlando and in Barcelona. He talks about the autonomous enterprise, where essentially AI is going to run your entire enterprise with some human in the loop, some human intervention. But it's a pretty interesting vision. It's not anywhere close to where the average company is. Now, to be fair, companies like SAP, they have to be light years ahead of us in order for us to benefit from technology. You think about Steve Jobs with Apple. When he came out and innovated, and when I say he, I know he didn't single-handedly invent the iPhone. He had a large part in it, but he had a team of people that developed a crazy device called an iPhone that no one was asking for. No one could fathom. No one could imagine a phone with no keypad and a little phone holding all my music and my emails and having all these different apps on there. I mean, that's just not at all something that was on the radar of anyone's mind back in 2006 when they introduced the Apple iPhone. But yet here we are 20 years later, we all have smartphones. Even underdeveloped parts of the world are using this technology. So I don't dispute the value of innovation. I certainly don't dispute the value of the investments that vendors like SAP and Epicor are making in their product. The thing I question is how quickly can people consume this? Because the iPhone was one thing. I still remember getting my first iPhone, just trying to figure out like, wait, what do you mean I can listen to music? How do I answer a call if music's playing on my phone? All these little things that sound mundane right now, and it sounds ridiculous right now because it's so basic and so fundamental and embedded in our DNA of how we operate as a culture now. But businesses are different because now you're not talking about just using a phone, something I can use and figure out on my own and fumble around with, and the consequences are pretty minimal. I might waste a little time trying to figure out how to answer my phone when I'm listening to music. But an organization trying to move their entire operating model and their entire infrastructure, their entire data set to a new technology, and then trying to figure out how to use something like AI to completely automate what a lot of people do. That's a massive undertaking. That's so different. It's a light years ahead of where any organization is, light years ahead of what any one of us are capable of consuming, especially when you compare it to something as simple as using the iPhone. So that's my takeaways. I think organizations are going to struggle to keep up, and I think that chasm is going to grow. And this is not meant to be an indictment on end customers by any means. In fact, I think it's a good thing, because you think about it, if you're a manufacturer, mid-sized manufacturing company, let's just say, your job is to produce widgets. Your job is to produce complex engineer to order products that satisfy your customer needs, and you're probably really good at that. You're probably not very good at implementing technology, and that's okay. That's why you lean on companies like SAP and Epicor and some of their partners, and other technology providers as well. So the question I have for the industry, and just for all of us to think about, is how can we change and navigate at a pace that's sustainable for us, while at the same time taking advantage of some of the innovation available in the marketplace? So love to hear your feedback on that question for you, because I think that's the big challenge we face here. Now, a lot of what SAP talked about was AI, and we're going to get into this in more detail later today with as we get into the discussion, the specific takeaways from the two conferences. We'll talk about the 200 plus AI agents that have been developed. There's a bunch of Joule enhancements, Joule Studio. I'm going to get into that in more detail later in the show. But some of the themes that also emerge, and this is where you start to set aside the hype and the morning after, the hangover of these events. And for many, it's a literal hangover, because a lot of these people don't travel. they aren't out on the road very often. So when they do, they tend to go off the rails at times. And there was a literal hangover. But what I mean by hangover is, once the marketing buzz fades away, what are we left with? What are the themes that stick? And, one of the themes that I keep coming back to, and I talk a lot about in my YouTube channel and other forums, is just the whole idea of vendor lock. How can we minimize vendor lock? What does it mean to organizations throughout the world, and how can we mitigate that? AI, how are we going to fit AI into our business? A lot of us are struggling with just the more fundamental things like cleaning up our data. We still don't have processes that are working the way they should. We're still using spreadsheets, and we've got siloed patchwork systems out there. So how in the world are we going to take advantage of AI? That's a valid question. The other thing that is really interesting is just how big of a role economic self-interest in investors in particular, their role in where the technology industry is headed. And on one hand, you need investors. You need massive amounts of capital to develop the software, to maintain it, to innovate with AI, to build out massive hyperscaling cloud infrastructures. That all takes time, money, resources, all that stuff that a lot of vendors don't have. So they, of course, need to raise capital. You want to reward companies that do their jobs well. But the problem is there's so much money chasing annual recurring revenue. I mean, that's something that it kind of creeps in almost. It's almost like they're saying the quiet part out loud in these conferences. They talk about annual recurring revenue as though a customer really gives a crap about what your annual recurring revenue is. No customer cares what the annual recurring revenue is of their software vendor, but the investors really do care. The executives care. And you have to think about what ARR is. ARR is predictable, high margin, steady revenue. And it's vendor lock related revenue. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. I can't call up my vendor and tomorrow just stop paying or cut off that expense. That is very predictable, almost guaranteed revenue. And that's what investors love. So you think about that from that perspective and that lens, and think about, well, how does that affect how they try to convert customers or how they try to deploy solutions to customers? They're doing it through the lens of investors first, in my opinion. I think it becomes more about how can we maximize our ARR, maximize our stock price. And if I'm an individual executive at a large software vendor, I'm going to get paid very handsomely to generate higher ARR. So of course, I'm going to do things that may seem irrational to a customer, but it's actually very rational if you're a software vendor, because it makes me more money. And so you as a customer, though, have to look through that, understand it, and say, well, what do I need to do to run my business? And this is all stuff that I cover in my new book, by the way, Welcome to the Machine. It's a book that unpacks how software vendors, customers, and consultants, all three of those gears of the massive technology machine, they work in a way that's on one hand dysfunctional for customers, but extremely functional and extremely effective for software vendors. So if you haven't checked it out already, it's I'm totally biased, I'll be honest, but I've written 3 books, and this one is leaps and bounds above and better than any book I've ever written. I'm very excited about it. I'm very passionate about what's in it. I feel like it's my whole career has sort of culminated so far to this book, because I've always tried to understand, and I've always taken a client first, customer centric view of the technology industry. And this book unpacks in a very non-blaming way. I'm not here to blame vendors. I'm not here to blame consultants, and I'm not here to blame customers. I'm here to say that machine, the dysfunction between all 3, is what leads to failures and the same repeated mistakes that this industry experiences. So check that out when you get a chance. But back to the conferences. One of the things that I noticed, especially here at the Epicor conference in particular, I asked a question in a panel discussion I was in that I was moderating, actually. I asked, how many of you are excited about cloud? And I'd say maybe a third to half of the room raised their hand, said they're excited about it. And then I said, how many of you are not excited about cloud and don't want to move to the cloud? And about half raised their hand. So it was probably about, roughly a 50-50 split. Thought it was really interesting. And I asked why. I asked people to comment, why are you not excited? And cost was a big consideration. And the other one was customization and flexibility. Like, I've got to get rid of the customization and flexibility, which in the tech industry, it's easy to just downplay that as, oh, that's just technical debt. You need to get rid of it anyway. Well, the reality is that's how that business works. You may not need to like it if you're a software vendor, but that is how that business works, for better or for worse. There's probably some good in there. There's probably some bad in there. But moving from that to a standard cloud model, especially SaaS, is extremely difficult. So those are the 2 things that, I learned from customers here this week. A lot of the stuff you talk about, it's foundational stuff that hasn't changed. It's all stuff that you should, we were talking about 10 or 20 years ago. You're talking about data, you're talking about your processes, your current state, future state. You're talking about decommissioning systems. You're talking about change management. You're talking about program management, all that stuff. And nothing's changed in some ways. In some ways, everything's changed, but in other ways, nothing's changed. And I want to show you here a couple posts here, just real quickly. I want to show you a couple posts from LinkedIn and just some of the feedback and some of the, what the market's saying here. This is actually from Timo Elliott, who's a high up executive. I believe he's in Germany, based at SAP. And he talks here about the future is enterprise vibe coding. Use AI for intent-based creation of processes and add-ons, leverage all the connections, artifacts, knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. And, this really caught my eye because he's from what I understand, he's an innovation guy, right? He's part of the innovation team. And I think he leads the innovation team at SAP. And by the way, he was on my Journey to S4HANA podcast not too long ago. You can find that out at journeyto s4hana.com. He was in one of the episodes there. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, I hear the word vibe coding, and I think that's so opposite of what SAP is good at. I'm not saying SAP can't be good at vibe coding, or SAP customers can't be. But what I mean is that SAP is built around structure, standardization, predictable processes. And in some ways, vibe coding disrupts that. It creates almost like a shadow IT situation in some ways. So that I thought was really interesting. And then I want to share with you another comment. This is from on the Epicor side of things. Let me make sure I get the right one here. Yep, here it is. So this is from Epicor themselves. Posted this right here. They said, we're announcing 2 important steps towards bringing cognitive ERP to life, creating a faster path to cloud. We're expanded to send with Epicor to help qualified customers reach a 90-day go-live target, using AI to simplify implementation, reduce complexity, and accelerate time to value. They talked a lot about time to value. A lot of vendors talk about it. It's not a huge deal. But what was really interesting here is that speed is, I don't want to say speed is the least of the worries of customers, but I think speed of implementing technology is the least of their worries. That is the least of the issues in the technology space. Getting the technology to the cloud, getting processes and even the data to a lesser degree, getting that all to the cloud isn't the hard part. The hard part is, how in the world am I going to change all my operations and change all my people, change my jobs, change the way I interact with customers? How am I going to change all that in a mass amount of change in a short period of time? Well, here's a spoiler alert. You're not going to do it in 90 days. You're probably not going to do it in a year. It might take you 2 years, 3 years. If you're a larger, mid-sized to larger manufacturing distribution type company, if you're complex, even if you could implement technology in 90 days, which I do question that, but maybe let's just say you could, you're not going to finish the project. What's going to happen is you're going to finish the technology piece and then be stuck with a mess you're trying to clean up. And so what ends up happening is because you don't want to mess you up to clean up, you end up extending it. You end up saying, well, I could do it in 90 days, but to do it right, I need to do it in 12 months, 18 months, or whatever it is. So again, I think the interesting thing is I don't think we should lose sight of speed to value. I don't think we should lose sight of being aggressive in our implementations, but I think sometimes vendors focus on the wrong things. I think they focus too much on how do I implement technology fast? How do I make technology easy for customers? And that's great. But at some point, you as a leader, an end company or end customer leader, you have to back up and say, hold on, what's a realistic pace for us to move? So anyway, that's my take on the conferences so far. And we're going to have a couple discussions here that I'm excited just to jump into. First, we're going to talk to Carrie Jordan from Epicor, and then we're going to talk to Scott and Krista from Rimini Street. They'll be on shortly after. So we've got a lot to cover here in episode 275 of Transformation Ground Control. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more. So stick around.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola. C-O-L-A.
If you only attend one event this year, make it Digital Stratosphere 2026. It's our annual flagship conference. It's going to be September 9th through 11th in Denver, Colorado, the same location as we held it last year. It's 3 days where digital leaders, ERP practitioners, and transformation experts come together for no-spin, vendor-neutral conversations on ERP, AI, and digital transformation. There's no marketing fluff. There's no pay-to-play sponsorships, just real practitioners sharing real lessons. Go to thirdstage-consulting.com/stratosphere to learn more and register. Tickets are limited, and these always sell out, and I'd love to see you there. Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 275. My name is Eric Kimberling. You can find new episodes of the show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. And I mentioned at the top of the podcast, this is we're deep into vendor conference season. 2 conferences in particular that have just happened or just recently wrapped up is the 2-part SAP Sapphire conference in Orlando and Barcelona, as well as Epicor Insights in Nashville, Tennessee in the United States. And prior to Epicor Insights, I had a chance just a few months ago to talk to Carrie Jordan, who's the Chief Marketing Officer, along with the head of the North American user group for Epicor. The reason I wanted to have them on the show is I had this interview with them just days after they announced that they were going to discontinue innovation or discontinue R&D and support for their on-prem solutions, and they were going to shift all that to the cloud. So I wanted to have a kind of a real-time knee-jerk reaction from customers and from Epicor all together in one panel discussion, and it was an awesome discussion because customers weren't happy. There were some disgruntled people in the audience, took some challenging questions. The user group sort of represented the customer side of things. Epicor talked about it from the vendor perspective, and I thought it was a really good picture of the tension between vendors and customers. And I think to Carrie's credit, she did an amazing job of de-escalating the situation and sort of giving customers a lifeline and a path forward that made sense without being overly defensive or being too salesy and too pushy, in her approach. And just to give you some background information, I requested her specifically from Epicor. I wanted her on the show. Epicor had offered to have one of their, I think more of a PR type person on there. I said, no, only if it's Carrie Jordan. So they agreed. She was able to work it out. She was gracious enough to come on and come into the lion's den, if you will, because it was a pretty, there were times that the conversation got tense. So let's roll this, and I'm curious to hear your feedback on this.
Overall, what Epicor has announced is a shift in our product strategy to focus our investments and innovation in the Epicor Cloud solutions. We announced it for Epicor Kinetic, Epicor Profit 21, and Epicor BizTrack. And what that means is over the next few years, there will be a shift. There's a schedule of releases where Epicor is going to be investing in sending out the feature releases in the cloud now. So, this is really emphasizing our cloud commitment, and our final on-premises releases for Kinetic, Profit 21, and BizTrack will be in 2028. There will be an active support period for our customers, and after that, there is a sustaining support period that kicks in. For Kinetic, that's January 1st, 2030. And then for Profit 21 and BizTrack, that's in 2029, mid-2029. So it's an important announcement that we've made. It's part of, I would say, a broader industry trend. But, happy to get into, the reasons why Epicor has announced this. But we're really excited, and we think that the future is absolutely bright, and there's a lot to come for our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super helpful. And I'm going to ask you more about the why here in just a second.
Yeah.
The why behind it, and sort of the business why behind it, because I know there's a lot of really good reasons why you and other vendors are pursuing this strategy. But first, I want to get to the audience here. A lot of people commenting where they're from today, so I'll just flash some of them on the screen. But we've got people from Minnesota, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, people or someone from Switzerland, Mason City, Iowa, Pune, India, Melbourne, Australia, etc. So we've got people all over the world watching here today. So this is obviously a very interesting, hot topic for a lot of us here today. And I appreciate you guys really both being part of this this discussion, because I think it is such an important conversation. And I'll be honest, Carrie, I've been, as an independent tech agnostic firm that is not affiliated with Epicor or anyone else, I've been fairly critical of vendors that do these migrations to the cloud, not because cloud is bad, but when it limits customer choice. That's been a big part of where I've always said, hey, customers should have choice, that sort of thing. But I also understand that there is a very good business reason that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard you and others talk about it in the industry, but I'd love to hear you maybe explain to the audience or talk about it from the business perspective. As a software vendor, you've got to do what you got to do to keep the lights on, and obviously be smart about how you invest R&D dollars, all that stuff. But tell us the why behind this. Why is Epicor doing this?
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so this is all about rapid innovation. Over the past few years, even just like the past 2-3 years, enterprise software has moved so quickly, especially with the advent of AI. And in order for Epicor to deliver on our responsibility for partnership with our customers and keeping them ahead of the market, we also need to make sure that we keep ourselves ahead of the market. If you look out the number of ERP competitors, even just within the past couple years, there have been new entrants into the market. Some of them are AI driven, but all of them are SaaS driven, right? There hasn't been a new on-premises ERP vendor that's come into the market. And so to ensure that we continue to deliver on the expectations that our customers have to responsibly deliver pragmatic innovation, as well as cybersecurity, really ensuring business resilience, that's what's really driving our shift to the cloud. Right.
And it's also, you guys have acquired and developed different ERP solutions over time. And, I've got to think that gets pretty expensive, and you start spreading resources pretty thin when, if you've got multiple products, multiple platforms, some on-prem, some in the cloud. Is that part of it too, just the way you consolidate the R&D? Is that how you're getting to that level of innovation that you're talking about?
This is a good question. And I do want to say we've actually doubled the amount of investment in R&D over the past 2-3 years. So we're excited about all the innovations that we're bringing to market, and we have made these investments in order to be able to innovate on those acquisitions, ensure that they're integrated to our ERPs, and to be ready for a stable, secure, scalable solution in the cloud for our customers. So we've absolutely been investing. We've been increasing the amount of R&D investment so that our customers can have a really strong, great customer experience with our SaaS solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to think, if you are doubling R&D like that and you continue at that level of spend, consolidating it into less platforms over time, I imagine that's just going to drive further innovation and hopefully in a way that still satisfies a broad swath of the market that you guys target.
You got it. And at the pace that's needed for the market today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jose, we've already gotten a couple comments from people, just sort of knee-jerk reactions here on what they think about this announcement or just this general trend. And again, this isn't just an Epicor thing. This is a broader trend in the middle market and in the broader ERP space. But Jose, you've been on the front lines, not only as one of the biggest Epicor customers, but also as the leader of that Epi users group. Tell us about what has the knee-jerk reaction been, or what have some of the themes been in the feedback you've received so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, the reaction has been varied, right? There are some people that are vehemently opposed to it. There are some people that are in the middle somewhere, and there are some people that are all for it. I think the great majority of people do not want to stifle or stop innovation. I think that there's basically 4 individual areas of concern that kind of have been summarized in all the threads that we've seen, right? The first one being control, right? The customers, so in some aspects, right, feel like they're losing control of their data. They're losing control of the ability to quickly react and change and pivot when the data is now somewhere else where we don't have direct access or ownership for the data, right? The second piece is compliance, right? A lot of us are in ITAR, CCMC compliance type of organizations that require specific rules that may or may not be met by a SaaS offering, obviously. And then you have the cost question, right? You're moving from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. That shifts a lot of that financial burden. It puts you in a subscription model for the core of your enterprise, right? If Word goes down, if I can't, pay for my, CRM, it is not that big a deal. But the ERP is the core of our organizations, right? It holds your financials, it holds your GL, it holds everything that you need. So moving that from CapEx to OpEx is a definite concern for a lot of our customers. And then last is the quality, and quality as it relates to access, right? What happens when the internet goes down? What happens when I don't have access to my ERP? And again, Epicor, being a mid-market manufacturing focused ERP for the longest time, right? They have a 50+ year history of small manufacturing companies that have things like old hardware that communicates directly with the ERP nowadays, that is not easily updatable or changeable. And so, ERP is a generational type of investment, right? The company usually buys ERP and is on it for 10 to 20 years. And so a shift like this can have a significant impact on the organization and the ability for them to pivot and quickly move.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, here's a comment from YouTube. Control, cost, compliance, quality, all concerns. And then another comment here from YouTube from Chris Kahn on YouTube says innovation would have be a novel cloud first approach, not a web port over the same product we've already had, including the same problems we've been griping about for years. So I guess this question is for you, Carrie. Is this mean that you're taking the existing on-premise functionality, for better or for worse, and putting that in the cloud, or how is that evolution of functionality from on-prem to cloud happening?
Yes. Okay. These are good questions. I do want to, so when it comes to the on-premises to cloud experience for customers, Epicor has rewritten tens of thousands of lines of code for Kinetic specifically. We'll talk Kinetic specifically, to build it as a cloud native solution. And then we're also already enhancing and building out additional features for cloud that, customers running in the cloud, we have over 20,000 that are running cloud solutions with Epicor Cloud, are taking advantage of today. So for those who have gone through that migration, I know there's a concern around control, right? And the ability to interact with your system and administrate your system. Epicor has recently announced and released our cloud management portal that allows organizations to retain control of their system from an administrative perspective, where you can, go in and do self-service upgrades and updates. You can do database refreshes. You can restart task agents. And these are the kinds of activities that I know that on-premises customers have been requesting for years, to be able to have that ability within the cloud versus having to submit it, through a support request. So we have been, really building out similar experiences that customers had on premises, and they can now manage that and do that within the cloud as well. I do want to really specify as well that unlike other competitors or vendors that have been issuing similar kinds of announcements where they're shifting to the cloud, Epicor continues to support on-premises customers. There's no immediate action required. I know that the title of this is sunsetting, and there's a lot of talk about end of life and all of that, but certainly this is not a sunset or an end of life. It's really over the period of time, encouraging our customers to move to cloud, but realistically, companies can stay on sustaining support for however long they want. We have thousands of customers that run on sustaining support today. And so this is something that, when customers are ready to move to cloud, we'll be there for them. If they want to stay on premises, there's sustaining support for them, which kicks in 4 years for Kinetic and 3.5 for Profit 21 and BizTrack. So, there is certainly a path and there's time, and, there are many resources that are available and ready to support those customers when they're ready to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are some of your other thoughts around what Jose was mentioning, some of those themes that he was hearing around cost,
yes,
quality control?
Those were great. Okay, so I'm glad, Jose, that you brought those up. I did want to talk about that. So there's the control aspect, which the cloud management portal really helps with. I also want to specify that when companies move from on-premises to the cloud, they maintain ownership of their data. And I think that there's a misperception that Epicor owns the data. That is not true. Customer always owns their data. And there are ways to get at the data that we have been innovating and developing over the past few years that are available to cloud customers, so that they can access it in ways that they're familiar with, like run queries and to be able to do reports and things. So there is the ability to gain access to the data in the cloud as well, that are similar experiences and familiar from when on premises. There's the specific around aerospace and defense and certifications and international data sovereignty concerns. And I do want to encourage any customers who are on now. We've been working one-on-one with many customers that have data sovereignty, government regulation requirements, industry regulation requirements, and working with them on a go-forward plan to ensure business continuity. So if you have that in your business and you haven't yet spoken to your customer account manager, I encourage you to do so. You can also reach out to, there's 2 different ways, info@epicor.com. That was in the press release and the customer email that we sent out. You can go on Epicare, that's our customer support portal, and you can email me. It's carrie.jordan@epicor.com. Please do. This is important to us because this is the most consequential, we know this is the most consequential announcement that we've made to our customers over the past many years. And there are a lot of questions out there. There's a lot of concern, and who we are, it's critical to our identity to partner with our customers and to be there for them. So you can message me on LinkedIn, you can email me, please do, if you have these regulations within your business, the industry data sovereignty requirements that I mentioned. Jose, what were the other ones that you had mentioned?
It was, cost and then quality.
Cost and quality. Okay, great. So when it comes to cost, so the total cost of ownership for running SaaS might be different from running on premises. And it's difficult to speak to it because it really depends on your business, the investments that you've made in infrastructure. There's also a number of ways that customers have been running our solutions when they've purchased the perpetual licenses. Many are running in private data centers. Many have their own subscriptions in public data centers, and some are running it within their premises, right? So it's difficult to speak to cost of ownership specifically, but I do encourage you to work with your customer account managers. Many customer account managers, and if anybody listening in has made that move to cloud, please do share your experiences. But it really depends on your specific situation and what you've invested in and what you plan to. And if you think about investing over time, really it's you have to take into account expenses, and then also business resilience and the risk of remaining on premises. I will say, and many customers have spoken publicly about this. We have customer success stories on the epicor.com website where they were running systems on premises and there was a security incident. And Epicor then, they reached out to Epicor to help, and we helped them get to the cloud, protect their data, and now there's ongoing backups and things for them. So again, there are customer success stories, case studies and things on our website that I would encourage you to read. Customers have spoken openly about this, how we've helped customers lock down credentials, create backups and things so that when if anything like that were to happen, Epicor is there to support them. We are, monitoring our cloud solutions 24/7. We have resources around the world. We're partnered with Microsoft and AWS, and we take advantage of their security expertise and breadth of resources, monetary as well as people, and all of the AI, fraud detection and all of those things. So that's helping us to maintain stability, security, and scalability of our systems. When it comes to quality, this is something else I think would be great to hear from customers as well. So when it comes to our ability to focus resources on our cloud solutions, this does help us improve quality over time. And I'll say, speaking of R&D investments, much of that doubling of our R&D investment has gone to cloud. And that has gone to quality within cloud. So we have Test Recoder is a tool, for example, that we've delivered to customers that allows them to also run, tests and things within their system to ensure high quality in the cloud. So there's a variety of different ways that we've been investing in automating quality for cloud. Now, I will say, of course, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. We have posted our SLAs for cloud solutions. And if at any time there's a question in regards to availability of cloud, we have status.epicor.com that customers can go to. It's open to everybody. And that allows customers to, see the availability over time of the cloud solutions. So yeah. I hope that helped, but we could definitely dig into any more of those.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I appreciate that. And you bring up some really good points. Simon on YouTube sort of chimes in and adds to some of what you were saying a moment ago, Carrie, in that the balance of investment is important. There's no point in spending heaps on R&D if support can't keep up. And I think, that gets back to the point of sort of consolidating, the R&D, the support, all that stuff longer term, even though you are providing support long term for these on-prem solutions. I imagine more dollars will go into supporting the cloud solutions over time as more customers adapt to it. There is a question here. Actually, there's a couple threads that are coming up here that I'd love to get both of your perspectives on. One is around data control. I'm going to find the one that I thought was representative of the thread here, because there's a few here. And there's some comments in the chat around access to data and control and ownership of data. And some are commenting on, should we have to pay to access our data? If we do have to pay to access data, do we really own it? So the question here that I think maybe sets the context is, do we have to pay extra to access our data if we own it?
Yeah, this is a good question. The ways to access data differs across Epicor products, and you always have access to your data. It depends on what you want to do with the data. If there's a high velocity or high capacity way in which you're looking to leverage it, that has compute required that might necessitate investment, just the way that the processing works. So it's difficult to kind of talk through it without having specifics. But I do encourage you, if you are looking at the cloud, please do ask your customer account manager specific to your solution, your ERP, and what you want to do with the data. If you want to plug it into third-party reporting tools, for example, that require fast and higher compute capacity, that might then require additional investment in other solutions and tools to do it. But that's not the case in every scenario. So again, it kind of depends.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for that. And I think, the good thing about this conversation, and especially the chat that we're getting across the different platforms here, is just it's interesting to hear people's knee-jerk reactions around some of this. And I think bridging the gap between, product roadmap and what customer needs are is really important. So Jose, I've got a question for you then. Based on what you're hearing so far from the Epicor user community, and I know you probably don't have an exact number here, but if you just had order of magnitude gut feel in mind, what percentage or what percentage roughly do you think of Epicor customers are going to use this as an opportunity to transition to the cloud in the short term, of the ones that are still on-prem? Do you see people saying like, hey, you know what, we've been sitting on the fence for a while, now's the time for us to jump in and just do it? Or is the dust still settling on the announcement and you're not sure? Or like, how would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is the dust still settling on the announcement. Everybody's still reacting to it. I don't have a feel for what percentage is going to follow through and move to the cloud, or what percentage might do something different. As I mentioned before, ERP is like a generational type of investment in an organization, right? You buy ERP, you implement ERP, you expect to be in that ERP for 10, 20 years, right? It is an incredibly expensive investment to do as an organization, and it is incredibly expensive to migrate off of the ERP, right? Into a different platform. So I think in the grand scheme of things, the majority of customers will get to the point where they, adapt to whatever offerings Epicor has. I think in the short term, there's going to be significant pain, right? Speaking from our own experience, right? We have invested millions of dollars in not only infrastructure, but customizations and things like that with this announcement, eventually we will have to reinvest in some way to get there, right? And going back to the control question, that's a big point there as well, right? I can quickly pivot, and one of the differentiators for Epicor has always been the flexibility of being able to customize it, being able to change it and adapt it to run your business, right? Once you move that control away from the individual business and into a SaaS offering, that limits your ability to do those things, right? And so, while I do agree, yes, I can get the data, and I'm sure the contract says the data is mine, right? But regardless, the server is somewhere else, in somebody else's computer, as they say. And what happens if there's a financial downturn and I have to, as a business as a business leader, I have to start pressing some levers to kind of save myself. And now the ERP, which is the core blood of my organization, is essentially held away from me in a way that I have no levers, right? I can't call Epicor and say, hey, I can't pay my bill this month, right? And those are the kind of concerns, I think, from a data control where it comes to, like, as an on-premise customer today, if something terrible happens to the economy and I have to press levers and I have to try and rescue myself as an organization, I have control of my data. And by that, I mean I have control of my destiny in my ERP, right? Mm-hmm. If I choose to, for whatever reason, to slow down and not move to the next version quickly because I can't afford the investment right now, that's something I can do. In a cloud offering, normally you are required to stay current, right? It takes us as a customer about 3 to 4 months to cleanly upgrade from version to version of the ERP, because we have a huge amount invested in customizations and process improvements that we have to do end-to-end testing on, right? These are things that we lose a little bit of control on when we go into that side, right? It's not just OPEX or CAPEX to OPEX. It is the fact that now the ERP is in the hands of someone else. And yes, I trust Epicor. They're our partner. We're in this together. But in the end, they're a business. We're a business. And so that relationship, takes a new power dynamic with this change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's interesting. Here's, I think this is one of the common themes we're seeing in the chat right now is what you just said, Jose. If my business struggles, or if I can't pay my SaaS or cloud bill, you get shut off, you get cut off from accessing your data and applications. That's a concern here. And so, this person says, what happens if they up the maintenance 10% every year and a customer can't afford it? I know Microsoft recently took a lot of heat for doing something along those lines. They increased like 10 to 15% year over year for some D365 users. And so I think there's a fear based on what some other vendors have done so far in the cloud journey that is an ongoing concern. What are your thoughts, Carrie? I know you can't predict the future, and you probably, I don't imagine you guys have thought that far ahead, in terms of longer term strategy for pricing and that sort of thing. But what would you say to this?
Yeah, maybe what I can do is to help clarify. When cloud customers sign their SaaS contracts, they lock in the price for the next however many years, like the term of their contract. So you wouldn't have to worry about a surprise increase when it comes to this question here regarding maintenance increase every year. There is not a maintenance increase. You work out your price within the cloud contract for that term. So maybe that helps in terms of predictability. Speaking of, as the world changes, as the market changes, economy changes, inflation, all of that, you would have predictability in your business in terms of how much you're paying for your SaaS contract. So maybe that helps a bit there. And in regards to the upgrades, they are included with your SaaS contract. You don't pay extra to do the upgrade. It's a part of the experience. And there are tools within the system to help you. If you've got configurations within your system, we have our configuration upgrade dashboard within Kinetic, for example, that shows, it highlights for you visually, like if your configuration is green, you're good. If it's yellow, maybe there's a cosmetic thing you need to go in and change in regards to how the fields are appearing within your screens. And then if it's red, something's broken and you need to go fix it. And we have tools available to help with fixing, especially as, we've launched Prism. There are AI specific tools to help you rebuild configurations, or even if you're going through that upgrade from on-premises to cloud, there are tools available to help you code or like rebuild, leveraging AI customizations that maybe you've built and rely on within your business for years in the cloud. And as part of any implementation, right, there are resources available to help you to determine whether or not those configurations or customizations that you've built over the years are even applicable to your business anymore. So that's something that we can do, and we're helping you plan your move. But when it comes to the actual upgrade experience, when you're already in the cloud, it's very, very rapid, very, very simple. And there are tools available to help. If you do want help, there are professional services, consulting services, and then the wide variety of partners around the world that are helping customers every day, if they're looking for that kind of support within their business. But as far as needing that kind of support, especially if you have the expertise to run the system on premises already on staff, managing it in the cloud becomes, I don't really see this to be a heavy uplift in any way for those that have the talent, and the resources on staff running on premises and now in the cloud. In fact, I would say, the role becomes much more of like helping your business navigate the future of technology, leveraging the new enhancements, the new features that come out. And then we do also have, of course, a lot of resources available within the library, our Epicor library, our Epicor learning system. We've got the Prism experiences that are available actually for every cloud customer to use Prism, where it's kind of like a Google experience, right? Where you can go in and ask questions, and the AI generates a response for you, and then it links you to the sources and site sources. So that's also available to anybody who's looking to learn very quickly within your cloud solutions. So there's a variety of tools available, and a lot of customers that have gone through this move have shared, through lots of different means, their experiences and what it's like once you're in the cloud, what life is like, what your Epicor experience is like. And I will suggest that if anybody is interested in this, Jose, you should talk about the community. But I also wanted to mention Insights. Insights is a great time to come together as the broader Epicor community to learn about all the systems, the different ways in what that experience is like when you do that upgrade, all the learning tools that are available. And if you are interested and you have not registered yet, it's epicor.com/insights is how you'd sign up.
I'm here with Epicor and Epicor's user group talking about the decommissioning of on-premise systems and the move to the cloud. We've got a lot more to cover. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
I'm Greg Benton. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Third Stage Consulting. And if you are embarking on your digital transformation journey or in the middle of that journey in 2026, you're going to want to see our digital transformation report. This latest edition really dives into a lot of the key trends that we're seeing in the marketplace and the ecosystem right now. It also highlights a number of the things that are happening with AI being an important component and integral part of the ERP systems that are leading the way right now. Also, the shift toward composable and best-of-breed cloud solutions is really accelerating the decline of monolithic ERP replacement. The opportunity to download the report is found at thirdstage-consulting.com. And you'll also find other tools that will help you in the initiatives and the business planning that you're doing for 2026. Don't leave phase zero without it. Reach out today.
I want to encourage you to read our Guide to Organizational Change Management. It's a free report or a free guide that we published. It's one that I actually wrote that talks about best practices and lessons learned as it relates to change management. So as you know, on this podcast, we cover a lot of stuff related to the human sides of change, organizational change management, including training, communications, org design, all kinds of stuff as it relates to change management. So if you're trying to learn more about change management or you're looking for more direction and ideas on how to get started on your change management strategy and your overall journey, be sure to check out this guide. You can read it by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you or in the links below for this particular podcast episode. You can find a link to take you to the page that will allow you to register to go ahead and download that and read it for free. So be sure to check it out. It's the Guide to Organizational Change Management, written by yours truly. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode 275, where we're here talking about Epicor's recent decision to shift innovation and R&D from on-premise to cloud. And we're going to talk about that, or we are talking about that from the customer and the vendor perspective. This is from YouTube. The comment is, Epicor upgrades are easy. It's the uplift that remains your duty, regardless of on-prem or SaaS. What are your thoughts on this, Jose? Do you agree with this? Because I think, it is easy to get caught up in the technology. Obviously, these are all valid points. Control, quality, cost, all the things we're talking about is very valid. But there's also the flip side of this, which is, I don't want to say it doesn't matter whether it's cloud or on-prem, but regardless of what solution you move to or just making any sort of change, it's usually not the technology that's going to hang up these sorts of projects or disrupt these sorts of projects. It's typically the user adoption, the way you align your processes with the technology and vice versa, all that stuff. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with this comment that
absolutely.
Adoption itself?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the upgrade in the cloud takes a couple of hours from a system perspective, right? But then it takes, in our case, 3 months of work, right? And that's because we have custom processes built on top of the flexible ERP, right? That we love. And it takes a long time for us to test everything out, make sure everything works, right? Because, Epicor does their best, obviously, when they're releasing new versions, but things break, things change. There are breaking changes. There's a lot of things on top of the ERP, right? Because the ERP is not only just the core of your business, but it is also, thankfully, a platform that allows you to change the ERP to fit your business as much as you need, right? And so a lot of the hang up, I think, with, for example, the upgrades in the cloud is that the control goes away from you on when you trigger that to now being basically, for lack of a better word, forced to upgrade on the cadence of what Epicor determines. And I know there's some flexibility with flex plans and things like that, Carrie. But in the end, you are required to be in the most current version of Epicor at a, cutoff date, right? And for, depending on the size, like small mom and pop shops that are pretty vanilla, that is pie in the sky, right? You click a button, the upgrade happens, you move forward, everything is great, right? But like I said before, the not small community of customers that have, invested a ton of work and a ton of money into using the ERP as a platform, that puts the onus now on us to make sure that we have those tests and that upgrade cadence in a way that doesn't disrupt our business, right? I can tell you right now that if I were on the cloud today and there was an upgrade, drop dead date of a month from now, there would not be enough time for us to be able to test and migrate everything over to the next version, right? And I'm sure there will be flexibility, and I know Epicor, Carrie being here is a great example, is they're listening, right? And we'll figure this out, but it is a big concern of the community, right? I have invested, there are folks that have invested millions of dollars on infrastructure, communications between your machines and the ERP, those type of things that cannot be on the drop of a dime changed or moved to a new version. That's where I think the biggest piece of this comes into play, right? Yes, the cloud, the base software will be automatically uplifted in an hour's work, and most of the time that piece is pretty flawless, right? It is the work on top of that becomes a problem for some customers. And again, small, mom and pop shop style, this is like kind of the sweet spot, right? It's that mid to higher market company that has used the ERP as a platform that is going to have a harder time with this change.
Yeah. Yeah, great point. And here's a question I think either both of you might be able to help answer here. This is from YouTube as well. Comment is, fast innovation suits small businesses, but large enterprises prioritize stability and traditional methods. Does Epicor limit itself to small and mid-sized companies only? I'm not as concerned about that last question. Last part of that question, Carrie, can I answer it for you that no, Epicor does not just do small and mid-sized companies?
Yeah. Actually, maybe this is a good opportunity to mention, we do have an enterprise cloud option available to customers. So I think everything that we've been talking about here is in regards to our public cloud. You would see Epicor in the public cloud. That means Epicor Kinetic, Profit 21, and BizTrack running in Azure, because we're partnered with Microsoft Azure. We do have an enterprise cloud offering that supports large businesses. That said, we have many, large businesses running in the public cloud as well. But to this specific question, if you require stability, you can upgrade as often as you want, every 6 months that we're issuing out the major upgrades, or you can actually retain your existing version for up to 18 months without penalty, for example. So there are options available, and if anybody's interested from a large organization and wants to take a look at the enterprise cloud offering, we have many companies that are running in the enterprise cloud today, and that could be a great option for your business.
So, Jose, from your perspective, then, being a larger customer of Epicor's, how do you view this innovation versus stability thing? Like from an enterprise apps perspective, and not necessarily getting into on-prem versus cloud, but just more technology is changing fast. You always have the opportunity to have something better than you've got. Probably for most of us, most organizations have functionality they're not taking full advantage of because the technology companies, I think, do a really good job of staying way ahead of where customer innovation might be on their own. So how do you view innovation versus stability? What do you value as a user?
I think we value both, right? Stability is the most important, right? At least in my opinion, in our business, right? We want things to work smoothly, to work well, right? But we also don't want to fall behind. We want to be at the leading edge of technology as well, because it makes us more nimble, it makes us change faster, it reduces our costs. Hopefully, it increases our revenue. All those things that come with better technology, right? But stability is the most important because we need to get the work done, right? It doesn't do me any good to have an AI chat agent that I can talk to and do some things if I can't run a simple report, right? That because I haven't been able to figure out what my customization to that report did in the latest version of the software, whatever software that might be, right? So that's the balance where yes, we need to be at the leading edge of technology as an organization, and we want our ERP to be at the bleeding edge of technology as well, because I do want to eventually get to the point where I can use something like Prism to accelerate our day-to-day, right? But it needs to be stable, it needs to be solid, it needs to have quality. I need to be able to run those reports and send out the bills, because that's what pays for the lights to stay on, right? So I think that's the balance there is, yes, it needs to be absolutely stable. I need to be able to count on it being there always, while having the option to, as we're ready, an organization move forward in a technology sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Great point. Carrie, there's a question. I'm struggling to find it in here, so I'll paraphrase it. But it was a question around a potential burst of activity among Epicor customers moving to the cloud as a result of this announcement. And the question was around, is Epicor's ecosystem prepared, and do they have the capacity to handle any potential burst in people that say, okay, we've been sitting on the fence for a while now with this whole on-prem versus cloud thing. This is a good, nudge for us to go ahead and make the move now. And suddenly you've got this burst of the Epicor implementations all happening at once. What are your thoughts around that?
Sure. That's a good question. And I imagine that there's concern around that. We've been investing in our teams, in our tooling, and our technology in order to be able to support this change. This is not something that we just spontaneously decided. This is certainly something that's been a part of a long-term strategy that we've been investing in order to be ready for our customers when they are ready to make the move. We anticipate that this will happen over time. We don't expect that there will be a lot of all at once. If that were to happen, we have the tools, we have the teams, we're ready to go. In the press release, we mentioned Ascend with Epicor. Now, Ascend with Epicor is a proven methodology for customers that are looking to make that move. It also leverages AI tools to help accelerate data transformation and data conversion. So we're ready. We're ready to go. Not just Epicor, but our partners around the world.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so some other comments. I'll just read through a few of the comments here because I think this is just valuable feedback for all of us in the community. Simon on LinkedIn says the speed of ERP adoption is bottlenecked by the customer, not the vendor. I actually tend to agree with that. I think it's usually, whether it's Epicor or other vendors in the market, they usually are going to innovate and change a lot faster than most organizations can, and that's not an indictment on customers. Obviously, it's just the reality of. You've got a business. There's some stability you are looking for, to your point, Jose. And so, you're trying to find the right balance between stability, predictability, and innovation. Whereas I would say technical vendors are probably a little more focused on innovation, which is what you want them for. That's why you're paying for their software. So I think that's interesting comment. A couple other comments that I think are more good for the Carrie, you and your team. And again, these aren't questions; it's more of more comments or feedback from the community here. This is from Brian on YouTube. It says, I can see an argument for cloud if your company lacks the internal skill set. A lot of us, however, already have that skill set. And it goes on to continue there. But I think that's I think a concern too for IT departments and IT staff would be, am I going to lose control? Am I going to lose value within the organization? So I think this becomes a pretty big change management issue too internally. And I don't know, Jose, have you seen that, or do you anticipate your team internally might struggle with some of that too for that reason?
I think we'll struggle with some of the control issues, but I think more importantly, though, one of the premises of a SaaS offering is that you relinquish control, but you get the benefit of infrastructure savings, right? Because it's a shared infrastructure now. It is on the cloud. I'm not paying for hardware. The problem is that most companies don't run just an ERP system, right? We run a bunch of pieces of software. So in the end, the infrastructure costs for me switching to SaaS do not reduce that much, right? I still need to have the staff to run my network. I still need to have the staff to run my servers. I still need to have all that infrastructure in place because the ERP is a small part of all the pieces of software that are needed to run a global organization, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. It is a struggle because I can't easily justify it and say, oh, no, don't worry, we're going to SaaS, and now I no longer have to have a staff of 15 and all these servers and all those type of things, right? I may save one server, I may save one license, but in the end, there is a lot more out there than just ERP. So it doesn't realize that gain as much as it could. And yes, absolutely. If I have the skill set in-house, now I'm shifting that cost over to SaaS so that I have to pay for that, but I still have to keep my employees so that they can help me run everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points. And then this is from Simon on LinkedIn. Simon says, small customers will not even notice the issues. Large customers can afford it. The mid-market is where it will hurt the most. And I think that's an interesting comment. I had never thought of it from that perspective, but it is kind of interesting thinking about the mid-market and how, if you're larger, maybe you have more resources, more budget, whatever. If you're smaller, maybe you can change faster and just roll with the punches a little faster. But the mid-market, you're sort of caught in the middle. And then Gabriel on LinkedIn says, I agree with Simon that midsize will get the most impact from faster upgrade cadence. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think that, every 6 months, I think you said, Carrie, there'd be new releases, but you have 18 months to decide when you want to adopt or put that into production?
Yeah, so for public cloud customers running in Epicor Public Cloud, Kinetic Profit 21, BizTrack, we have major releases that come out every 6 months. And when I mentioned the 18 months, we have the enterprise cloud offering for those large organizations that require longer, that they need to stay on an existing upgrade for longer. They have up to 18 months in that enterprise cloud offering. I will also mention for life sciences customers specifically that require validation of their system because of FDA regulations, there's also a specific upgrade cadence available to them that allows them to stay on longer. So all of this feedback is so helpful for all of us in product, because as we're building our experiences, especially for those mid-market customers, in the variety of different industries that we serve, we incorporate this feedback and we build it into our system. So, to that comment about mid-market having more difficulty with the upgrade experience, we want to hear about that and we invest in our tools to help support them. So the upgrade configuration dashboard that I had mentioned previously, the cloud management portal that I mentioned previously, these were specific ideas from our user community that we took and we innovated and then we delivered on that request. And so the more that we hear this kind of feedback, ideas, that's really important to us. I think the community is a great place to go. We work with the community members and we listen to them. I also want to mention Epicor Ideas. It's the Epicor Ideas portal. It's basically a crowdsourcing platform where you can go and submit ideas and you can vote on them. All of our product managers are watching those and we incorporate that. And we haven't in the past done a great job of reporting back to everyone as to how we've incorporated those ideas. But we've been working on making sure that we're highlighting specific enhancements that come from our user community in the Epicor Ideas platform, and then we deliver it into our releases. When we do deliver releases, we also have feature flags, so you don't have to necessarily start using the new features that were involved if your business isn't ready for it. We have lots of resources available as part of the upgrade experience itself, such as plans, feature summaries, a sample test plan, and then that also helps as you're determining whether or not you want your business to start using one of these. Day 1 or day 15 or not at all, that's okay too. We have those controls available within the system so that you can use it or not.
Right. Now here's an elephant in the room that I think is worth getting out on the table now, because I think this is something that, again, not just in the Epicor community, but we see it with other vendors that are themselves making the shift from on-prem first to cloud first. And that's, I don't think any of us are really disputing that's where the market is headed overall. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of when each vendor is gonna get there. But the comment here is around Epicor CEO 2 years ago at Insight said that we wouldn't be in this current situation. And 2 years on one hand, 2 years can be an eternity in the technology space when things change as fast as it does. On the other hand, if you're a user, that was just 2 years ago. And now here we are, and now we've got to make the change. Jose, is this a common sentiment that you're hearing from the user community or as far as past promises and past direction that has now changed?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard some of it around that, right? There's a lot of emotion attached to the ERP because, like I said, it's the core of the organization. So we absolutely have heard this particular comment in the community in the last week. I will say, I don't believe that Steve was lying when he said this 2 years ago, right? I do know that the market changes, right? And Epicor is an organization that has to shift with the times. So I don't necessarily believe that Steve was lying to us. I don't think that that's where we need to be at. I think what we need to focus is on how do we meet in the middle and solve the problem for the customers while trying to keep in mind what Epicor needs to keep their lights on, right? So I think there is a middle ground that we can all get to. Whether that is a subscription service where we can still have some control, but still gives us the SaaS ability, whatever that might be. And there's a lot of solutioning going on around the community. There's a lot of internal discussions, I'm sure, happening within Epicor, and we're looking forward to what's to come there. But I don't know that it really is helpful to say, hey, the CEO said this 2 years ago. Okay, yeah, he said that, right? And yes, some of us are kind of hurt and disappointed by the outcome. But at the same time, we have to understand that they're a business and they are responsible and responding to their shareholders, just like I am responsible to our shareholders. So I don't know if it's necessarily fair to, hold his feet to the fire to that statement he made, while understanding fully that the community is disappointed in the decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really well said. Thank you for that perspective, because I think that's something I struggle with too. It's like, you think about, were there customers that bought Epicor because they had the option and they wanted to be on-prem, 2 years ago, and now it suddenly changes? I get the sense that it was more the legacy, like people that have been on-prem for a while, heard that message and thought, okay, cool, we've got a big runway here, when maybe it wasn't as long of a runway as they thought. What are your thoughts, Carrie? I mean, could you explain to us, without getting into an economics course for us, but just, how does, because I kind of know how, different leaders are measured and what investors want. Private equity gets involved, as they have with Epicor. There's certain expectations around annual recurring revenue and the margins that come with that. I mean, tell us the business side of it, and not to dismiss what Jose just said, because that's really important. What customers think is really important, but we also have to understand, to Jose's point, what kind of pressure do you guys feel as a vendor that might have led you down this path?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you brought this up. This, as you said, elephant in the room, this is something that I know a lot of people have rightfully been asking about and questioning. I do want to specify, this is not an end of life, nor is it like really a sunset, or we're forcing anybody to do anything. There is sustaining support available to those customers, and thousands of companies are currently running sustaining support today for legacy or previous on-premises or hosted solutions. So I do want to really emphasize that if you want to stay on premises, Epicor is here to support your business. We are. That said, yes, I don't think any of us could have seen just how quickly the pace of technology and investments have changed over the past few years. Certainly with the advent of AI, the cost of data centers and servers, this is all skyrocketing. And so in order for us to really continue to be a business that is highly competitive and stays ahead of the market to deliver on the responsibility for innovation and security that our customers expect, this was a move that we needed to make, a shift in our investment strategy that we needed to make for our business, our future resilience, and to ensure that we're going to be there for all of our customers for decades to come.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, there's some comments coming in around, can we make an idea to make on-prem here to stay indefinitely? So long live on-prem is the sentiment for some in the audience. And I do, and all kidding aside, let's go with this a second, because I've thought about this a lot, and I've actually had online debates and discussions with people around on-prem. Like, will on-prem come back? And part of me thinks that there will be another wave of on-prem just to counter some of the cloud-focused moves. But I think inevitably that's not sustainable, because what will happen is, in order for that on-prem software vendor to scale and to get investment money, they're going to want annual recurring revenue. They're going to want the subscription model. They're going to want the ease of deployment of cloud versus on-prem. It's more scalable as a business. So I have trouble seeing, I think even if on-prem, you were to say, is better fit for a lot of customers or some customers in the market, finding a sustainable long-term vendor ecosystem that could support that. I don't know. I just don't see how that works. And I don't know if that's where you guys landed, Carrie. It's like, yeah, you could keep doing on-prem. You could keep spreading your R&D across different platforms. But ultimately, if you want to truly knock it out of the park and catch up to some competitors, continue moving ahead of other competitors of yours, you've got to consolidate some of that R&D.
That's
I
right.
imagine.
Yes, exactly. And I think actually this is a great idea to go to Epicor Ideas and to start a conversation, although I'm sure it's already there now, in regards to being on premises. In fact, I know it's there now. But it would be good to go in there and share your business needs and why you would want to stay on premises, because we want to take all of these ideas into account. And I will say, and I think Jose, you were kind of mentioning it or alluding to it, we are exploring hybrid options to see, what could we do for our customers, those that want to have an on-premises instance for whatever reason, and how can we continue to innovate to solve those customer needs and have a new offering in the future for our customers. So please do go to Epicor Ideas, submit those, this is something that all of our product managers are watching, looking at, and we're taking it into account. So yes, I think it's a great idea to make an idea to stay on-prem.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more comment. I just realized we're up against time, so I'll wrap up here in a second. But OG, on YouTube says ARR does not equal maintenance fees, ? And I just to clarify my point around how vendors need and want, investors need and want ARR. ARR for maintenance is a lot different than ARR for subscription fees. There's a lot more money in the subscription fees if we're being candid here, and I think that's the driver. In fact, one of the first comments we got, which is kind of funny, was the first comment that came in was an emoji of a smiley face with dollar signs, and that, I hate to kid about it, but that is the reality. Vendors need to make money. We all need to make money, right? That's why we're all here, and so it's a matter of finding that right balance that obviously supports everyone that's involved. So there's a lot more questions here, a lot of comments. I know Epicor, I'm sure, Carrie, you and your team will be reading a lot of these comments that are coming in here, as well as in the Epi users.
All of them. We read all of them.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys taking the time here. Here's more of a forward-looking question that I've already been accused of asking you at least one unfair question from one of the people in the chat that you shouldn't have asked Jose that. It wasn't fair. And I think it was the one I was asking about what percentage of people you think will actually make the move to the cloud, which, to be fair, is not a fair question. Hopefully this one's a little more fair. And that is, if you had to read or predict the future, what do you think the Epicor and mid-market ERP space looks like in 5 years? Like, after all this dust settles, people, we work through the change management, fear of change issues, and the good, the bad, the ugly of any sort of ERP deployment. What do you think this all looks like in 5 years?
I think we can get to a middle ground, right? And that's the hope of the community, right? I understand that as a vendor, they need to make money. The shift on revenue it makes sense, right? Carrie, as you said, the cost of infrastructure on the cloud is skyrocketing, right? And that's a concern for us too. And so we understand all this, right? And I can see, to that point, the cost of infrastructure on the cloud is going up, which means my Epicor maintenance or my Epicor SaaS fees are going to go up too, right? So it's a little concerning there. But I do think there's a middle ground where we can get to a place where you guys or Epicor or the vendor is saving in R&D, deploying in a single way, while still giving us some of that control, right? Whether that is a hybrid approach of some sort, whether there is a shift on the way that the on-prem is seen, right? And there's some other competitors that are doing something like this, where you can still run and install your on-prem ERP via containers, via something that allows you guys to deploy in the cloud seamlessly and not maintain two code lines. As an engineer, hat tip to you, because maintaining two code lines in a single product, it is, as far as I know, and I'm very well versed in the space, it is a single product you guys are developing, and you are maintaining two parallel tracks within the same code line, right? And as an engineer, that is a nightmare scenario, right? So I get the shift, but I do think that there is a middle ground where we can all kind of agree and understand that we can keep some more control, we can lower our costs, hopefully, and you guys can, continue improving and moving R&D. I think in 5 years, AI is taking over the world, much to my chagrin. But I do think that there is a place for it, right? I don't think that a chatbot on your ERP is really all that helpful, but I do think automation around AI, using LLMs, using the MCP protocol, those type of things, coming in and having conversations with your ERP in a different way will be helpful. And I understand that, it is an easier deployment path to do that in a SaaS offering. But I do think there's a middle ground, and I hope and I know that Epicor is listening, and we will get to something that we can all, kind of agree to.
Middle ground. I think that's perfect the way you said that. Yep.
What do you think, Carrie? Anything you'd add to that as far as where you think this all goes in 5 years, and in the 5-year plan for Epicor, and how you hope you see your customer base in 5 years from now?
Yes. Yeah. Gosh, speaking of AI, who knows what's going to happen with AI? But yes, I do think so. With the cost of infrastructure really increasing, it's getting more and more difficult to even get access because of the supply chain issues. So much of it going to the large hyperscalers. And so I do think that we're going to be able to really continue to partner with our customers, create a great customer experience, provide those insights generated through AI or other types of analytical machine learning and types of solutions for our customers, so that we really continue to improve the clarity of supply chain decisions that they have to make in their business now and over the next 5 years.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you for that great feedback. Really appreciate it. Really interesting conversation. In fact, I appreciated both sides, both perspectives here, because I think that's a very healthy conversation, healthy debate. Really important to understand both the vendor and the customer perspective here, and I think we accomplished that. What we're going to do next, now that we talked about it, Epicor and their roadmap, I want to shift gears and talk about SAP's roadmap. That's going to be what's up next. We're going to talk about some takeaways from Insights. Or I'm sorry, that was Insights we just talked about. We're going to talk about SAP's Sapphire conference. I can't even keep the names of these conferences straight. That's how many of them there are. But SAP's Sapphire just wrapped up in Orlando and Barcelona. We're going to talk about some of the takeaways there. So stick around. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
When the soul of the city was laid to rest, and the night's forgotten.
If you're about to embark on the jungle of digital transformation, check out my new book, Welcome to the Jungle. It's a book that just came out in late 2025. It's my second book, and it's a book that focuses on digital transformation failure case studies and talks about the lessons and takeaways from that. It's 300 pages packed of all the lessons and things that I've learned from having been an expert witness in lawsuits related to digital transformations, and also with our team helping clients recover some of their failed projects. I've included as many lessons that could possibly fit into one book here. You can read this book. You can order it anywhere in the world in hard copy format, which is this format here. You can get it in paperback. You can also get it electronically as well. Scan the QR code right here or go to the links below for your copy. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 275. My name is Eric Kimberling. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. I'm excited for our next guest is Krista and Scott from Rimini Street. We're going to talk about some of the takeaways from the SAP Sapphire conference.
My name is Krista Glantschnig, and I have a long history working at SAP, and currently I am the product marketing director here at Rimini Street, specifically focusing on the SAP market.
Got it. Okay, great. Great to have you here. I think this is the first, you and I have done videos together before.
Yeah.
We know each other, but this is the first time in a podcast setting, I believe. So thanks.
Thanks for the invite. I'm excited.
Absolutely. It was the last, and just for the audience's edification, this was a relatively last minute. I knew I wanted to do this, but just getting it scheduled has been interesting to say the least. And there's been some years of errors on my part, and these guys still joined, even though I gave them the wrong times. All these logistical things that were kind of a mess for them, they still joined. So thanks for being a trooper and joining us, especially coming from a marketing person who's a lot more organized than I am. So thank you, Krista, for being here. And then Scott, you've been on my podcast before. You and I have done a lot of work over the last couple of years. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, great. Good to see you again, Eric. I work alongside Krista here at Rimini Street. And, you know, really our role is to help the market understand what's available to them outside of what the vendor dictated mandates and roadmaps and strategies are. So Most people who are listening here, I hope, would know, but if not, Rimini Street is an independent provider of third-party support for enterprise software, not just for SAP, but for Oracle, for VMware, for literally hundreds of products, enterprise software. And we help our clients get that support to optimize what they have and then to innovate across the top of their enterprise software portfolio.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about Rimini. I mean, you used the word third-party support. I didn't know that was a thing. I bet a lot of people here didn't know. You mean to tell me I don't have to get my support through my software vendor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You're playing me now, Eric, because I know you do. But for those in the audience, you know, the analogy we often use, Eric, you and me, is you don't have to take your car to the dealer for an oil change. Somebody else can be the ongoing caretaker of your enterprise software besides the vendor that published it. And we proved that way back in 2005 when Rimini Street was founded. And we've continued to grow ever upwards from there. We're now $400 million plus in annual revenue and 2,000 employees in the world, 30 offices in 22 countries. But we obviously hit a nerve and are helping, you know, really large clients across industries to get better, more comprehensive, more responsive support than they did. And then the other piece of it is the freedom, because to get that support, we don't require a client to have to upgrade and stay on the latest release. We'll support whatever release they bring to us, you know, for 15 years or more. It's up to them.
Right.
I wanna add to that. Like, the fun part of having been involved in huge enterprise SAP projects, and specifically with, you know, ECC and S4 HANA in the past, we know how customized these projects are, and they need to be, because, you know, every organization has their own requirements for how they operate their business. And what's the fun part here about Rimini Street, me having been here a little more than 6 months, is that, you know, what I've learned here and see how this company truly supports the clients, not only for the regular maintenance, but also for those customizations. And those are like the key to the businesses, you know. And so not only Rimini Street supports the same and for less money, but also includes the customizations into this game. So I love that fact, and that is something that our customers are really appreciating as well. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So you guys have been, you obviously follow the SAP ecosystem very closely. You've been following what happened at Sapphire last week, what's being announced this week. I guess just to start, before we get into some of the takeaways, Krista, you and I were talking before we went live here today about, you know, one of the best measures you can use to see how people are really reacting in aggregate to a conference is to look at that vendor stock price. Tell us about what you're seeing with SAP stock price since Sapphire started last week.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, want to congratulate SAP for delivering this event. The event itself, amazing every year. You know, SAP is good on putting together this conference and all around it, and all the clients love it. That's great. But then going back into the messages that were delivered there, how that actually influenced the market and the clients. So it's an important one. What happened with the stock price? The stock price, you would imagine it would go up and nicely if the market said this was a really reliable message that came out. But what happened last week was that the stock price actually went down a bit. And the analysts were directly looking at it and kind of finding reasons for why this happened. And the reason for that is that, you know, we all know how many, like 20,000 customers or so are still on ECC. They haven't made their decisions yet. When are they going to move? SAP wants everybody to move into cloud. They have a path to cloud through the RISE program. And that is the program they have been, so to say, pushing at all of the on-prem clients, whether ECC or S4HANA on-prem. Now, additionally, AI has only been available for clients in the S/4HANA Cloud versions. Okay, and so SAP made this announcement last week saying now AI is available for even ECC and S4 on-prem. But there's a catch in that announcement, and that catch is really important. That catch is that to get access to that AI for your on-prem systems, you're going to have to move 50% of your maintenance spend in the cloud. So what is this telling? It is telling that market didn't react early on into the SAP's push into the cloud the way SAP was expecting. Now they are putting another gate to AI, saying it's available, but it's behind signing a contract with me and spending 50% of your maintenance with us in the cloud. And the market didn't buy it. They didn't buy it as a great announcement and a great advantage now to the ECC and S4 clients. So that would be my first bigger take from the week.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear from the audience here on LinkedIn and YouTube, Facebook, X, TikTok. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the fact that the stock price dropped. Are we looking too much into that? Do you think that's a reflection of a broader concern? Love to hear from the audience here. I want to say hello to some people joining here live. Yuri, thanks for joining on LinkedIn. Megan, thank you for joining on LinkedIn. TikTok, we've got a lot of people joining. Rob, thanks for being here. Filipina, thanks for Gina. Paku, Goodall, Daniel, Mick too. Thanks for joining. A lot of different people joining here on TikTok. So any questions you guys have, I'm watching all the streams. I'd love to hear your feedback, comments, especially if you're at Sapphire, but even if you're not, love to hear your feedback here. So let's talk about the big sort of the headline announcement they made at Sapphire is this concept of the autonomous enterprise. And this is what Christian Klein unveiled in Orlando. And I assume he's probably talking about it in Barcelona this week too. Do you guys think this is a genuine paradigm shift? Is it repackaged messaging built on top of the same RISE S/4HANA agenda that we've already been seeing? Or what do you make of this whole autonomous enterprise thing that they're talking about?
I think the opportunity to separate the restrictions and rigor and structures, I guess I should say, the menus, the forms, the transactions of your ERP system from how you do your business, is really important. Now, how autonomous we make that and how much we still have human in the loop, I think truly depends on a company and its governance. There's a security piece that plays in here. And I do believe that most enterprises over the next few years will get to have more autonomous agent-driven actions taking place, and they'll have to make those tough decisions about governance and human in the loop. So, I don't think that in this case, Christian's saying anything new. I think everybody's headed there. And the question is going to be, how do they get there? How do they deploy their ERP beneath all that? Because it's the ERP, great transaction system of record, right? And that's still going to be there. But how are they going to operate their business and interact with that system over time? Agents are going to be doing a lot more of those actions. One of the thoughts I had, Eric, was that your highest volume users of an ERP system, those who are like inputting SKUs and orders and processing invoices, etc., thousands and thousands of transactions a week. I think 3 years from now, they're still going to be the highest users of SAP, but they're going to say, "What's SAP? I don't even know what that is. I never touch it."
Right. Yeah. The whole headless ERP concept that
everyone's
talking
ERP.
about.
Yeah, and that's a piece of it. He's obviously talking about autonomous enterprises, things that just run even without human intervention. And that, again, is going to be the balance. We'll have to see how it plays out. Krista?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, regarding Sapphire. A lot of announcements before Sapphire about new partnerships, new acquisitions. And SAP is definitely building an architecture, a new architecture by doing these acquisitions. They needed new technologies, new partners to get there where they want to go. One thing about that is that obviously every organization is going to build their strategy to get from A to B. But we all know that we can put those acquisitions into a PowerPoint and we can say this is what's going to happen. But when is that going to actually become reality? That is something that I would recommend everybody to watch. Saying we know how long it takes to just integrate a new company into an enterprise. How do you not only the technology but the company itself, integration of a new organization in, and then the technologies working together. So I would get back and looking at these acquisitions a year from now. Like a year from now, I would see where did we get actually with these announcements that came out? How did it play out? What did we actually get built and how is that working? These are all brand new announcements. Another thing is that every organization is going to have early adopters on stage.
Sure.
Early adopters of some sort and saying, hey, we got these and these results. But I would say interesting acquisitions, interesting choices, but is to be seen what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Second point I wanted to make was the fact that we do not disagree with SAP on the architecture. Rimini Street agrees on the architecture. We agree that innovation is going to be on top, like Scott said before. We believe that the ERP is going to live it has its own purpose, but AI is going to happen on top. We just sort of disagree that the only way to get to that AI and I would call it an adaptive enterprise, not an autonomousness. I would like to see an adaptive enterprise that is open for best of breed and not just one vendor, adapting to the needs of the organization, where we are building agentic AI on top with agnostically too. Like we let vendors, we let our clients decide what AI vendor they want to use for building agentic on top. And that makes the choice of the client come first. We are not proposing that you are making a big platform decision and subscription decision on one go and say, believe in us, sign up, and it will come, But that's what I would take from it.
Yeah. That's good. That's really good stuff. And here's a question from Megan on LinkedIn. Megan asks, is SAP stock telling us the market doesn't believe the 2027 or 2030 deadline strategy will hold? I'm curious because I know they've sort of shifted that date. It was originally going to be sooner, and now it's more like 2030 for many organizations. Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, I'd love to take that. They clearly did not extend the deadlines. That would have been enormous news. And we probably would have heard celebration in the streets. Right. 2027 is a big deadline. There's some that will hang on till 2030 and pay an extra premium to do that. But those are still deadlines. And so I think the stock price and the market reflection of this is that, and this has been true for a few years, SAP leadership has really pushed their strategy to benefit the investors and move as much of the revenue over to their annual recurring revenue number as possible, right? Yeah. And this idea that they're going to offer AI to S/4HANA on-prem and ECC clients only if, and Krista said the catch, if you move a certain amount of your spend to the cloud. There's going to be subscriptions involved. There's a plan called Max Success Plan. Don't have the exact details on that yet. All the commercials are a little bit fuzzy at this point. But I think what the market is saying is you guys have been trying to move this giant multi-thousands of clients to that model for years. And whatever you said at S4HANA, at Sapphire, didn't really move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
People are still going to want what they want and run what they have for longer than you as a vendor have decided to give that merit.
Yeah. And just some of the articles that came out last week, the analysts are saying that fewer than 20% of SAP proposals included AI units. And AI represented only about 5% of deal value. So takeaway from this is that like SAP needs your AI adoption more than you need S4HANA Cloud right now.
That's well said, yeah.
That's what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well,
you've got the leverage. The clients have the leverage. They've got it right now in their hands. The decision is there, and whether they want to rush in and follow SAP and the vision from, I would just pause right now. I would pause and think and say, yeah, am I following this, or are there other options for me? We've been talking about this before with you, Eric, but right now is the time to say, well, the market didn't buy it. I have the leverage and I want to look at what options do I have? And does this deadline really push me? The point is that, like you said, Scott, and everything, is the deadline. A lot of companies maybe think that there is nothing available there after the deadlines. But that's where we come in. That's a false assumption that 2027 and 2030, that's when there's a cliff. There isn't. Rimini Street is going to come and carry you over.
Right.
And that deadline doesn't need to drive the decisions, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. And I was going to say that, I don't want to put you guys too much on the spot here. I'll be careful of how I say it, but I imagine that Rimini Street is not helping SAP stock price right now. The fact that you're giving them options, that you're giving customers options right now, that's great for customers, but I don't imagine SAP investors are super excited about companies like you, and not just Rimini Street. I mean, it's not even third-party support. It's beyond third-party support. It's just optionality in general is somewhat the enemy of what vendors like SAP want. And I think that's the big challenge that they face is, who are you trying to keep happy here? The investors who really want you to push to the cloud and get that ARR, that annual recurring revenue you mentioned, Scott, is so important that I don't think a lot of buyers understand how powerful that metric is to investors and especially to executives. These executives are getting comped so heavy on their ARR. In fact, investors a lot of times don't care about anything else. Just show me the ARR and I will reward you handsomely. So it drives a lot of irrational. It's not irrational. It's actually very irrational. I say it somewhat tongue in cheek, but it's very rational why executives and why these organizations like SAP are pushing so hard to do whatever they possibly can to get you into the cloud, into their AI agents, get you locked in right now, because investors and executives are rewarded for that.
Okay, so you finally used that word, lock-in, right? That's what this is all about. To an investor, it's annual recurring. I can count on it year after year after year. And the barriers to exit from an ERP system that you've heavily customized and used for years are enormous. So if you have moved your perpetual licenses, relinquished those, and then signed up for subscription, then the very right for you to use that software tomorrow is dependent upon you continuing to pay that subscription day after day, month after month, year after year, and the investors know that, right? So, as Krista has said, we want to promote optionality in the future. Man, who knows where this stuff is going to be coming from? Who knows where the greatest new technology is going to be? And why would you put all of your commercial, technical, and financial eggs in that one basket? And with, as I say, a barrier to exit that's just scary big. The chances of you getting out of that in your career are pretty slim, right? So that's our message. Don't lock yourself into jail. Keep your options open in the future and buy yourself some time.
And I wanna, if I may add to that about the price of this whole thing. So if you think about it, what's the price for following? If I would say I'm going to follow the SAP path, I want to move over. For access of AI, for the sake of it, I need to move over. Okay, what's the price of it? the price of it is a migration project, as you know, a migration project of a couple of years that's going to cost me, depending on what size of a company I am, it's going to cost me from a couple of millions, a couple of tens of millions, as we know already. With the success of variation, there are successful and less successful projects from the migration perspective. Okay, and so clean core, figuring out what am I going to do with my customizations and so on, bring those into BTP. It's a huge project. Okay, so now I paid millions and millions to get there. Did I get AI yet? No, I just got access to AI. I didn't get any AI at this point. All this money was invested just to lift me from here to where I could get access to it, right? So that is a big price tag to it. And that's when then now I can start deciding what am I going to pay for AI, because there's a separate price for that. I mean, there is something included in the price, but it's not the full AI suite. You know, you get a little bit, but then you're going to have to start deciding what you want. The autonomous enterprise is, of course, going to have its own price tag.
Yeah.
Second thing I wanted to say was about CFOs and depreciation of assets and so on. So many of these assets that are running right now, they are already depreciated or they are being depreciated right now, right? So they are part of that.
You're talking about
path.
the perpetual software license assets.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also a really important perspective. Where do you keep them in your accounting and where are they right now? Are you ready to take this new OPEX cost, right? And also there are companies that are like utilities companies and so on, where budgeting happens in the way that they have, for them, it's easier to get a CapEx than OPEX, for example, approved. So if you're going to move into OPEX, you're going to have to take the cost, the expense right now, if you're going to move over to cloud. And so it's going to change your whole budgeting and planning process quite remarkably.
We're here chatting about some of the takeaways from SAP's recent Sapphire conference. We've got a lot more to cover. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola. C-O-L-A.
If you're leading a digital transformation or ERP initiative and you want to avoid the costly mistakes that most organizations make, that's where Third Stage Consulting comes in. We are an independent and technology advisory firm, meaning that we don't sell software, we don't take commissions from vendors. Our only job is to protect your interests and be on your side. We help executives and project teams plan, deliver, and recover digital transformations and ERP projects, reducing risk, improving adoption, and delivering real business value. If you want clarity before you commit to your digital strategy, or if something feels off track to you, feel free to reach out to us at thirdstage-consulting.com, and my team and I would be happy to help.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 275. My name is Eric Kimberling. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. And we're here talking about some of the lessons and takeaways and the realities of SAP's Sapphire conference. You talk a lot about CFOs. Krista, from the CFO perspective, a lot of what you've written and talked about in the thought leadership I've seen does talk about that. But you're touching on something really important here that I just don't hear many or enough people talk about, which is this isn't, yes, we can talk about AI and architecture and functionality and all this stuff, but a lot of what we're talking about is way more fundamental and strategic than that, which is if I'm a CFO in particular or any business leader, I've got to be thinking about my intellectual property, my competitive advantages, my differentiators. And this whole model that SAP and other vendors, it's not just SAP, I think this is where the industry is going, is it's moving towards heterogeneous lock-in scenarios with limited flexibility And again, it benefits vendors, it benefits their investors, and it benefits the consultants and the system integrators that all support those vendors. So you've got this massive ecosystem that's telling you as a CFO the same thing, which is you don't go to the cloud now, you're going to die. You've got technical debt, whatever, all the buzzwords we all hear and sometimes are guilty of using. But what are some of the strategic considerations? Because I think that's what we don't talk enough about in this industry. We're talking too much about AI and architecture and integration data, all stuff that's important. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more simple than that. It's more, what do you want to protect as an asset? How do you want your balance sheet to look? How does it affect your cost structure long-term? How does it affect your flexibility long-term? Those are boardroom decisions that have nothing to do with technology, yet companies are backing themselves into decisions that may not fit that strategy. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, in general, I just think that, the CFOs right now, they should ask a few questions, because if you have a CIO on a team who is coming to you and just saying, hey, this is the price tag and this is what we have to do, because that's probably often what happens. It says, hey, SAP says this is what we need to move towards, this is what we have to do. And, SAP is talking to the board and offering this option as the one and only option right now. Right. And so what I would recommend is that people educate themselves about what else is available out there on the market. And do I need to do this really just right now? Right now is not the time to make these huge investments. It's right now is the time to pause and think, because like Scott said earlier, who knows where the ERP market is going right now? It's happening, like so much is happening every week, every month, like we are saying, what's the role of ERP in the future actually going to be? It's super interesting to see. And at the same time, how are these agents going to live and work, and what is autonomous and what's not? So I think just signing a blind check for something is not a good plan right now. And additionally, regarding these migration projects, how many times did that budget actually hold? The budget that was put together and saying, we're going to do this migration project, it's going to cost 10. How many times did it actually cost 10 million? So everybody has to put a good amount percentage on top of that, right? In the budget already, thinking about this is going to be much more expensive.
I have an idea, Eric. Your next book could be called On Time, On Budget. And it would just be one blank page.
Right. And it'll just say, said no one ever, or,
that's in the ERP transformation market. Yeah, exactly.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But
and then finally asking the CIO, like, hey, why do I have to, like I just mentioned earlier, hey, here's the price tag of 15 million of a migration project to access AI, and then we can start talking about how much the AI costs. Why do I have to do that? Why can I not start doing what we really need to do?
And that's a really good point. The CFOs that I interface with are some of the ones putting pressure on the CIOs to deliver better, faster, cheaper operations, right? The CFO is in charge of every dollar we get in, I need to turn into one times, X dollars going out. And the way to do that is to increase revenue and reduce costs. And I believe that some of this autonomous enterprise, some of these agents can reduce my costs. The actual proof in the pudding of that is still very difficult, I think. And Eric, you've seen some of that. I believe you might want to comment on that. But that's the CFO's role. How can I get more out of every dollar? And they've already spent and depreciated the dollars for that transactional ERP system. Mm-hmm. Now, how can I make my enterprise, my entire operation, more productive, more cost effective, deal with new things changing in the market, do it faster, change my product line, my go-to-market, my client experience faster? How do I do that? I do that with this new layer of capabilities that have nothing to do with the form, structures, and navigation of an ERP system and the transactions. It stores and records and reports very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all It's all good stuff. And I think I hope, people are taking this to heart and taking this message to their leadership team, because it is such a paradigm shift. And I worry that executives in 2, 3, 4 years from now are going to look and say, wait, what just happened? Like, how in the hell are IT costs out of control? Because now we've got all these recurring cloud costs and the vendors are jacking up the prices 15, 20% year on year. Whoa, stop the presses. And then by then, like, well, you signed a 5-year contract. And by the way, even if you could get out of it, good luck getting all the data and all the AI agents and all that crap you built in there. Good luck getting it out and moving it to another platform. I mean, your options are fairly limited. So I think now's a really good time to be smart. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Just be smart and stop and think. I mean, that'd be my big takeaway.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you guys something real quickly about, as it relates to that, though. There was a lot of things they talked about here at Sapphire, and I believe they are probably talking about this in Barcelona as well. They talked about Joule Studio, Joule Work, the new SAP Business AI platform, 50 or more Joule assistants, 200 plus specialized agents. A lot of talk about AI, right? And of course, all the vendors are doing it. But what's real today versus what is more of a roadmap / really early adopter type of thing? Like, how much of this is real in your opinion, just as far as companies' ability to actually start using some of these tools?
I think it's real. I do believe that there are some really clever things coming out of dozens and dozens of software vendors right now. And, SAP's got some smart people. I'm sure they're doing good things for embedding Joule within SAP apps, potentially opening it up outside of that. But if you were to think about, if you were to list the top AI development companies and delivery companies in the world, I don't think the ERP vendors are going to top that list.
No.
And they're going to come with a lens that is their perspective, their ARR, their toll gates, and their priorities. And it's really time. This is a market moment for IT leaders to take back control. No. It's my business. It's my priorities. It's my choices. And those are the 3 things that I think the vendor wants to take away from you.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that, the good question, like you open up here, is that, SAP is coming up. Every company has to, and they have to come up with the agents and the strategy for it. And they have all these different areas where these agents are acting. Some of it is packaged. The best solution to be running from SAP right now to have all of this working is the public version of S/4HANA. And that's not where the enterprises are. That's not the enterprise. That's where the new entries are. So the private version is the S/4HANA version that's also available for the on-prem. So that's one code base of the product. And then you have a second code base that came, the latest version, 2602, for the public cloud. And that one is the one that functions well. It's great. It's like it's got everything built into it and so on. Although it doesn't have the same functionalities that the other S/4HANA has, that are more sophisticated for an enterprise, because that was started to build. It's a new code base that was built. So it will all work in that environment, in public environment, but that's not where the enterprises are. So it is to be seen how all of this is gonna happen, because if you are in the private cloud, you are still in a 2-year upgrade cycle, right? You're still upgrading. Right. It's a private cloud, but the thing here is that you are paying for it to SAP, so you are stuck. It's not like you are in a cloud where you decide your infrastructure costs based on your provider. So you are there, you're running your system there, and you're doing your upgrades. You are mandated, I believe, to do the updates every 2 years. And then based on those upgrades, you're going to get access to whatever AI access you get at that point. Okay?
Yeah.
What they do not give is access to that AI to the S/4HANA clients who are running the same code-based product, but outside of SAP's subscription cloud environment, those guys don't get access to the AI now if they don't go to the new announcement that we just got. But those clients have the possibility, which is the greatest, it's the optionality of this, that they can choose. If you want to run S4 or ECC in the cloud, you don't have to go to SAP to do that. You can run it, bring your own cloud. Look at
bring your own license.
Look at Kingfisher.
Kingfisher
made the bold choice of doing that. There are others too. I just mentioned that one. And then you can innovate however you want to. And if you don't like that infrastructure provider, that cloud provider, you can change to another one later. That's where you don't just have one-way ticket into the cloud.
You own that relationship. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you guys have alluded to this, and I know it's part of your business model, Rimini, but anything you can do to hedge your bets, diversify, not get too locked into one ecosystem. You just want to preserve that leverage. And you also want to hedge your risk in case, God forbid, SAP goes away someday. We don't know for certain that SAP as a product, I don't want to, I have to be careful what I say, because on TikTok, they're very, I've been banned on TikTok for saying stuff like this, because it's almost like, I'm saying something blasphemous, but who knows if SAP will be around. It may not be a viable product.
Am I on TikTok right now?
You are, yes.
Oh yeah, I'm on TikTok.
Yeah, you're say hi to all the
I'm pretty cool now. I'm on TikTok.
Yeah, your kids are.
Yeah. I'm like, hey.
I'm sure my kids are watching. Well, they should be in school, but if they're not, they're probably watching TikTok right now.
I'm sure they're not.
But no, but I think that's something to think about. Is like you get locked into any one vendor, and we're making this big assumption, this big leap of faith that a big enterprise software giant that has been around for 50 years is going to be around for another 50 more years. And we all know, I'm surprised. I mean, it's impressive that they've been around as long as they have.
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but it's, I feel like we're at the end of an era. I feel like we're coming up at the end of an era, and we don't know what this next chapter looks like. Like, what's ERP going to look like in 5 years? I don't know that we really know that. So why would you double down and recommit and increase your cost structure, decrease your flexibility, tethered to a model that, quite frankly, it's long in the tooth, and may not be around. I mean, by the time you guys stop supporting SAP in 2040, if you do stop supporting in 2040, that assumes you guys don't extend your third-party support. But let's assume you stop in 2040. Who knows where SAP is going to be? So if I'm in a CFO, I'm thinking let's hold off here and let's sweat the asset a little bit longer. Let's do some incremental value add. Let's put other AI agents in other ways, and just consider that as an option. I'm not trying to be anti-SAP here. I know you guys aren't, but it's about understanding options here.
That's the point. We're not anti-SAP at all. We love the SAP software. We support the SAP software, and we love our clients running it, and they're getting business benefits from SAP software every day. But the point is, like, yes, AI, but why not AI piece by piece? Why not AI for exactly what you need? Use case by use case, proving value, looking at what are we actually wanting to do. And that's the key, where even SAP leadership is saying that the future of AI, it's not about the technology, it's about the organization's readiness for change. And are these organizations ready? And if we are, why not to approach this in a way of saying, where are we ready? Let's start there. Let's do piece by piece. And that's where Rimini Street comes in. That's why I love to work for this company, is because we really listen to these clients and we help them. We're not saying just one size fits all,
I'll give you a real good example of that, if I may interrupt there, because this is exactly what we heard from our clients. When we developed a new capability called Rimini Agentic UX, this is bringing intelligent workspaces to specific personas and roles in the organization that manage processes, some of which touch, at some point, run a transaction or two in the ERP. But there's a lot more that's involved in those processes. And so we put this capability out into the world, first to our existing clients, and say, we have the ability to create these cross-enterprise, cross-app processes. Where would you like us to apply that in your business? And frankly, Eric, I thought there would be consolidated pockets amongst, let's say, the first 25 takers that we'd see. Oh, a lot of them want to do, I don't know, automation of AP. Guess what?
Right.
We had 26 businesses that did proofs of concepts with us. 26 different use cases. 26 different parts of the business. That's exactly making Krista's point, that what the ERP vendors decide they want to deliver to you in terms of, hey, you can automate this or that, may well not fit your priorities for what you want to automate now, right? And it gets back to choice. What's right for your business? Let's do the most important thing right now. Get success out of that one, figure out what we did right and wrong, and then let's move on to the next one and knock them out as it's important to you rather than whatever they decide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have no, we as customers, if we're all customers of SAP or any ERP, cloud ERP vendor, we don't have control over where that product is going to go. We have a client who's implementing SAP right now. And in the midst of the implementation, there was a module they discontinued. I want to say it was like the C4. It was a customer service module of some sort that they just discontinued. And this wasn't like ECC. This was part of S4HANA. So this is like their new platform, and they discontinue unilaterally, just discontinue it. And they were hedging their whole end-to-end process on this one module. So it was just and I'm not saying that was right or wrong of SAP to do, but the point is it caught the customer flat-footed. They had to overhaul their entire processes just overnight because SAP chose to discontinue or decommission that module within S4HANA. And so that's something else that CFOs and executives leaders need to keep in mind is you don't have control, or you're ceding a certain amount of control of your operations for the future to a software vendor who has their own agenda, their own priorities. You're not the most important thing to SAP. You customers collectively might be, but you as an individual customer are not the most important thing to them. And so that's the other thing that I don't think we've really seen. We haven't even scratched the surface on how that might affect customers going forward. I want to hit a comment here on TikTok. Mick Green's 2026 says SAP and Oracle are both too big to fail. So curious on that. Are they too big to fail? Do you think the tech industry could go on without them, or do you think the tech industry will change fast enough? Do you think they'll be able to change fast enough to keep up with the tech industry? I'm not asking you to predict whether or not they will fail, but could they fail? I mean, is anyone too big to fail in this industry?
We've taken that approach with some other companies. You've seen the lists of the top 50 companies from the 1960s or 70s, and the many of the top 10 aren't there anymore. So yes, I believe that history could repeat itself. I also believe there are very smart people in charge in an industry where change has been constant. And so the adaptation, look, they all moved from, floppy disks to client server to, from Windows UI to browser-based to service-oriented architectures. And I'm dating myself, but these companies have shown their proclivity for adapting, maybe more than some of the ones that that we did see on those old lists from the prior millennia. So I don't know that they'll necessarily go away, but they're going to have to change.
Yeah, and I know, like you said, smart people. I spent many years in Waldorf. I lived in Germany and worked at SAP. Smart people thinking about as well, like how we're going to help these clients. But the question I have is really, and this is going to be in the client's hands right now. Am I going to like somebody gating things for me? Am I going to like somebody putting a lock-in on me? Do I want that, or do I want to have more freedom? And I'm talking about this, like I believe that the ERP systems that SAP has, they are solid right now. We have a solid ECC, we have a solid S4 running on-prem or bring your own cloud, solid items. Why do I need to move to cloud? Why do I need to do that? That's the big question. And I think where we need to see, not to fail as the whole, but I would say, is there a point where clients are going to say, do I buy into this AI vision and if I do, and by the way, oftentimes the ones who do, they move over to S4 into the cloud with SAP full subscription because they believe in that packed, locked-in vision. Or do I not? And if I don't, what's going to happen? What are these clients going to do on ECC S4 who are on-prem? If they don't believe in that vision, it's going to be seen what they say. What are they going to say about all these restrictions on APIs, whatnot that SAP is introducing after the fact, right? After the fact that those contracts were signed years ago. I don't think it needs to be a whole ERP AI, but it's market is going to show, right? If they're going to fail or not. There's always a possibility for everybody to fail or win.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you just have to prepare for the possibility that any one of these ERP vendors could fail, and things are changing so fast. We just don't know what it's going to look like. When I go to TikTok, there's a bunch of comments coming in. User not found says, "Are you banned?" I was banned yesterday on TikTok. I am not banned today, at least not yet.
Look.
Yeah, I know I got banned just for talking about conflicts of interest in the ERP space. As soon as I started talking about that, I got this flag that said you're bullying and harassing. So it was bullying and harassment. And I'm like, really? I'm getting accused of bullying an entire industry. And then there's questions around a lot of SAP career advice, how to get certified. I apologize. I'm gonna skip over those just because it's outside the scope here. But so the business, this is from Olivier on TikTok. So the businesses want someone to come and offer use cases to them, or do they know what to automate? I'll just take a quick pass of that. I think, you know, a lot of times organizations know where the pain points are. They know where the inefficiencies are. They may not know how to automate, but you know, SAP certainly has functionality that can help improve some of your processes. Lesser G on TikTok says SAP AI focuses on FI or finance. Finance. I forgot what the I stands for, but the FI module or the FI capabilities in. Is that true? Or I thought I saw some Joule and I think some of the new agents they're rolling out is outside of finance as well. I don't think it's just limited to finance, but
I know they started with a lot of HR stuff. HR and procurement, and now maybe some finance.
It's the obvious because those processes are more standard between companies. I mean, what's accounting is accounting. It's not that different for every company. It's a little bit harder when you go to supply chain when everyone is different. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here's a comment I want to get to on LinkedIn. This is from George. George says, FYI, SAP is not only upgrading, is undergoing its biggest platform-wide transformation in decades, centered on AI, automation, and a new autonomous suite. I'd agree with that. I think that's probably a true statement. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine a time. I mean, it was a pretty big deal, I guess, when they went to like client server type technology, but that wasn't nearly as big as what we're seeing now. Doesn't mean that, I'm not disputing that. I think what my personal opinion is that it doesn't necessarily mean that SAP is going to be the 800-pound gorilla, the number one dominant ERP vendor in 5 or 10 years from now. They are going through massive transformation. I think they're reacting in the way that they think is going to benefit them the most. Whether or not that works, I don't know. I like you guys. I mean, I started my career as an SAP consultant. A lot of people think I hate SAP. Yeah. I'm like, I really like SAP. Actually, that's how I learned about SAP. That's how I became a consultant was because of SAP. So I don't hate SAP. I don't hate the product. I don't hate the company. Yeah, it's just more of the dysfunction of helplessness or feeling trapped, and that, it's that stuff that's not necessarily nefarious. It's not necessarily intentional. It may be, but I don't think it is. It's the situation that gets created. It's more of a systemic thing in the industry. Here's another comment from Mark on YouTube. It says that currently the IT market looks slow. It's reminding me of 2001 when the .com bubble burst. 3 days ago, I applied to 200 jobs, and 2 days ago, applied to 100 jobs, and daily now 100 applications. So I assume you mean the job market is slow. I don't think technology is slow. Technology is actually very fast, but I agree that this is an interesting dichotomy that I haven't fully understood. Maybe you guys have some insights here, and I don't know if they talked about it at Sapphire, but you've got all these changes happening. There's all these cool technological advancements, but yet these same companies, not just SAP, but others, are laying people off in mass. Like Oracle just laid off 30,000 people. I know SAP's had some layoffs. Others have Salesforce. Others have laid off people. So what do you think what's the dichotomy there? What's the because that's very confusing. It's very conflicting.
It's retooling for a new world. We all have new tools that can help us do more with less. And so it's not surprising to me that some of these development jobs and others in that same genre are being eliminated. Yeah, Oracle's a little bit different story, kind of an en masse, massive strategy pivot from enterprise software to a focus on AI infrastructure and data centers, right? They want to be that backbone to all of the AI compute that's happening, whether or not it's coming from an Oracle application or database or something else. They just want to be that compute backbone. But yeah, I mean, it is changing. It's changing the IT skills market as fast as the technology that the users are buying.
Yeah.
I think that another perspective to that is the many companies invested heavily into AI. And unfortunately, right now, some of these layoffs are because of that. Maybe these investments didn't pay back in the timeline that they were supposed to. The truth is that code written by AI today is what I hear. It's not really there yet where it needs to be. And so the fact that they invested heavily in AI, then they have to lay off people. There are a lot of people who have to do a lot of work right now. So what's going to happen here? I think that, Scott, you're right, for sure. Some jobs can be done with less, but there's still a lot of human interaction required in this stuff to get it right. Like I wouldn't bet today on AI running parts of what we do here at Rimini Street autonomously, so to say.
Yeah. All three of us may be out of job soon, but hopefully not in the near future. All right, so that's what we've got for you today. Long episode, lots of great conversations. Love to hear from you if you were at Sapphire, if you were at Epicor Insights, if you were at any vendor conference recently, you have feedback on what's going on in the industry, things that buyers should be aware of, things you should be thinking about as you implement software. Love to hear your feedback. So drop them in the comments below. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you on the next episode of Transformation Ground Control. Take care.